What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the never-ending, ever-evolving Ready Said podcast. If society's a joke, then we're just here for the first set. All right, well, we're back. You know me, always taking random breaks here. It's been a little bit. There's a lot going on. Let's see. I don't even know where to start here. Probably should. Well, let's just start here. We got Ron DeSantis in the race. Joe Biden's officially running. So we're gonna have to make a few adjustments here. So bear with me as we're gonna move Sleepy Joe down here because he's in the race. We're gonna move him right over. I don't even really want him on my side, so we're gonna kind of keep him over here, and then since Rano is officially in the race, or Meatball, Meatball, looking a little meaty there, sir. We're gonna have to put you right back here. I mean, he honestly should be over here in the bushes somewhere because that's how he's pulling, but we're going to get to that in just a little bit here. So I think that looks good. Now, I think what we're going to have to do with Hillary here is, yes, she's retired in the palm tree, but really, as a politician, she's off into the sunset, right? Ah! I'm caught. Hold on. Off into the sunset. So we're going to put her... So you got Hillary off in the sunset. I guess these guys running for office. We'll move Trump a little bit up here. And, Sleepy Joe off here. Okay, so before we get into that, that's kind of where we're headed. We're going to talk about, what's going on with the 2024 election, who's running and what's going on. Won't be doing this too often. I'm trying to get away from doing the politics stuff, but this is kind of a big deal because considering Trump's also been indicted recently, so we're going to have to kind of talk about that a little bit. All right, so before we get into all that, we're going to bring back something to be brought back by popular demand, and we're going to do a little Asteroid update. I need to get like a stinger or something, for in between, whatever. All right, so we got an asteroid the size of a bridge expected to pass by Earth, NASA says. The 1,500-foot asteroid will pass Earth at a distance of 1.9 million miles, which honestly is, a pretty far distance considering I think the moon is like 500,000 out. So it's almost 4 times that. So, if I remember correctly, if you watch, was it Armageddon? I think it was Armageddon. Maybe the other deep space, the Deep Impact, they also did that whole thing where you got to blow up the asteroid in half by a certain point in time so it'll go around the Earth. Otherwise, it'll break off and hit the Earth. And I think if you look at off the top of my head, this is why I wish I had someone here with me so they could look this up. And if I forgot, I think they said it was under... I can't remember the number, but it was a pretty small number, and it was definitely more than 1.9 million. All right, let's see what we got here. The asteroid called 1994 XD, is nuts, has a span of 1,500 feet, comparable to that of the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. I wonder if that comet or this asteroid has as much crime as the Brooklyn Bridge probably does. All right, that was a bad one. There's currently no danger of this asteroid hitting Earth, with the object passing the planet of about 2 million miles. That's roughly 8 times the average distance between Earth and the Moon, 20 times closer than Venus gets. So, yeah, in other words, and here's a little drawing for you, it ain't coming anywhere near us, bitch. It ain't gonna even come close. So, let's see, we got another NASA story here. NASA tracks a newly discovered asteroid that has a small chance of hitting Earth in 2046. Okay, well, this is kind of news, but what kind of, oh, God, hope I can read this. A newly discovered asteroid, roughly the size of an Olympic swimming pool, which is really not that big, has a small chance, I see what you did there, of colliding with the Earth in 23 years, with a potential impact of Valentine's Day in 2046. Well, the good news is probably by then no one's going to even see it coming because they're all going to be buried into their phones. That's even if this country is left standing by then. The asteroid has a 1 in 625 chance of striking Earth. Now, I like those odds if I had a lottery ticket, but as of living on a giant rock about to be slammed into by another smaller rock, not so much. Based on the data projections from the ESA through NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory Sentry System, calculated the odds closer to 1 in 560. Whoa. The latter tracks potential collisions with celestial objects. But the space rock, named 2023 DW, is the only object on NASA's risk list that ranks 1 out of 10 and some scale, whatever. I don't even know what this is trying to say. Okay, so yeah. So this thing might hit us. It might not. It's the lot size of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. What I think this article is also failing to mention is that how much of that asteroid is just going to dissipate in the atmosphere as it comes through. Right. And I bet it's a lot of it. So by the time it actually hits Earth, there'd be nothing left. Let's look at this. This video looks fun. This is not what I thought we'd be doing here, but let's see what happens here. Oh, okay. That's a lot of NEOs. It looks like we got oh geez. This blue dot represents all the near-Earth asteroids and the gray circle. Whoa. Yeah, that's a lot. The NEOs are... Here, let me do this. They enter Earth's inner solar system due to gravitational attraction from nearby planets. This animation maps out all the known asteroids from 1999 to 2018. There's a lot of them. It looks like a hurricane, kind of. More than 18,000 NEOs. All right, so this 40 per week. Geez, you could do a whole podcast on this stuff. And the chance of a large asteroid hitting Earth is very slim, but scientists will continue to monitor all known NEOs so Joe can keep doing this segment for the podcast. All right, well, that's good news. Thank you so fucking much there. All right, so let's get to our main story here. So as we know, we are officially in the midst of the 2024 presidential election. I will not lie, I've been waiting for this moment basically since November of 2020. Because it was pretty obvious to me the morning after that first Tuesday in November that Trump was probably not going to win, and all those Hail Marys that were being thrown, the Kraken that was going to be released, it wasn't going to be. So it was obvious to me. I'm assuming the political neophytes, the people that are new to politics, either from jumping on from the midterms in 2018 or finally getting into politics in the beginning or middle part of the Trump era, or even jumping on into politics in the midst of 2020, because I guarantee you COVID definitely politicized a lot more people on top of, the 2016 election. And I've always wondered if these people who were hanging on to the fact that Trump is the president and he still could have won, that, their quote, oh, wait, you're allowed to say this on YouTube now, that the election is rigged. It was rigged. We put up an episode. I had to call it voter chicanery. I wanted to call it, this is why the election was rigged. It feels so good to be able to say that. And it feels horrible that I have to silence myself and all that jazz. But I'm not a free speech warrior. I'm just a guy that wants to rant into a mic for a few hours a week or month in some cases. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on here. I want to start with the Democrat side first, because I think this is very interesting here. We're going to go to the full article view. So what we have, is our RCP. I love Real Clear Politics. This is my favorite website to use. I don't find them too biased. I maybe on their editorial side, but as far as the data, the numbers, they seem to be pretty good. Now, the rise of Robert Kennedy Jr. Who saw that coming, right? I think down here we go. There's a CNN poll in the mid-May that showed Biden coming in at 60 and then RFK here at 20. And he's been kind of, he obviously has a big lead. But you got to remember, coming in as the incumbent president, and you have someone in your party polling at 20%. Now, I understand this guy is a Kennedy. Let's bring me in here to the fold. This guy is a Kennedy, so there's going to be some name recognition. But I think this is also a referendum, that's the word I wanted, on Joe Biden. I mean, he's the man in power. He's the person who's been steering the ship, so to speak, for the last 3 or 4 years. And when you have, someone being polled at 20%, it's not good. And to show to the other side of the coin, in 2020, when Trump was running, he was polling at 90% in the party. And remember, there's a huge faction within the Republican Party that doesn't like Trump. And those are the people that got Biden elected, which that's a whole nother conversation, is how do you get this guy elected and then rail against? It just makes no sense. Why did you vote for him in the first place? I'll tell you why. Because the majority of the people that were voting for Biden, that were Republicans, that voted for Romney and Bush, these are just rich fucks. Rich guys who either have friends that are Democrats. These are rich guys, rich Republican, fiscal Republicans that live in big cities that are probably voting this way because, yes, they're fiscally conservative, but they also have these social liberal biases to them. Maybe personally they don't either care or, feel the way their friends do. But, when you're in these social circles with people, especially when you're at the upper echelons, in the social hierarchy, so to speak, these groups get smaller and smaller and smaller, and you want to be a part of them because generally in these small groups, there's people running large businesses, or they have just large money or access to people with large amounts of money and capital. So, that's kind of what's going on there. So anyway, with RFK, I'm actually very interested with this guy because when he came out, I was like, who the fuck? I mean, I know who the fuck he is. I remember him being the anti-vaxxer guy, but because of COVID, that's kind of, given this guy a lot of credibility that he probably wouldn't have had before COVID or even in the 10 years prior to that. And, listening to what he had to say, I could see why this guy's polling at 20%. I would even say if he was the Democrat nominee, I would consider voting for him. And you're like, what the hell did you just say, Joe? I will say it one more time. If Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the Democrat nominee, I would literally consider voting for him. And why, you ask? Well, I'm prepared for that one here. Here we go. Let's go full screen here. All right, so we got RFK Jr.'s policies. Well, what is your stance on abortion? Pro-choice. That's, I don't personally agree with that, but at the same time, as I say that, I'm not a woman, so am I even, according to them, allowed to have an opinion on that? It's funny how some people are not allowed to have an opinion on it, but then, when they do, it's just interesting to me because women want to say a man is making a choice for a woman, okay? Then clearly what you're implying is that their opinion doesn't matter. So only women's opinion matters. So then even if I have an opinion on the matter, it shouldn't really bother you either way because my opinion doesn't matter. So for Robert F. Kennedy, he is pro-choice. Should gay couples have the same adoption rights as straight couples? Yes, as long as they pass the same background checks as straight couples. See, this is moderate. This is where most of the country is. Should the federal government require people to wear face masks in the public during the COVID pandemic? No, we should let the virus naturally run its course. Whoa! Is this guy a right-wing Republican or he's a Democrat? I mean, I think he's a Democrat. He's running for Democrat, but isn't this what right-wing Republicans say? Should the government enforce a stay-at-home order to combat the coronavirus? No. I like that. Nice and succinct. Should there be more restrictions on the current process of purchasing a gun? Yes. Well, we're in a bit of a disagreement there, but there's not a lot of nuance to what he's saying. It's a one-word response. I would require to hear a little bit more than just yes, and maybe we can make a decision from there. Should employers be required to pay men and women the same salary for the same job? Yes, and businesses should be required to publish their salary ranges for each position. That's honestly, well, required, I don't know about that. I kind of get a little weird when the government starts requiring people to do stuff like vaccines, as I'm sure Robert F. Kennedy Jr. knows about. So through the government and the business, I don't really like the government getting involved with regulations and stuff like that. I understand, but forcing companies to do things that really have no bearing on, like, what is posting the salary ranges for each position on a website going to do? I just don't see how that has any benefit for the public at large. Maybe there's benefit for people that want to be involved with the company, work for the company, do their due diligence. But as for the public at large, no one gives a fuck. Do you support the legalization of same-sex marriage? Yes, but allow churches the right to refuse same-sex ceremonies. See, this is where most of the country is. If you talk to the current administration that's, currently in power here, they would fight this to the death. And so would the press secretary. The press secretary would probably even say it's dangerous to even allow that conversation to take place. Do you support the impeachment of President Donald Trump? Yes. Okay. Well, I don't know about all of that, but...
You know why? Fake news.
That is correct, sir. Now, he's a Democrat. You got to toe the party line. That's fine. I'm really interested to hear what he would say about what was going on with Joe Biden, Burisma, but that is kind of a bit of a whataboutism. But at the same time, he is perfectly in his right to have opinions on the matter. Should police officers be required to wear body cameras? Yes, this will protect the safety and rights of police officers and citizens. Now, on that subject, I do agree with him. However, I don't understand. So, I guess with these body cams, these police departments give some leeway. I mean, again, like if you're having if you're a police officer and you're just having a random conversation with a citizen, I guess they, in some certain situations, based on the policies of the police department, allows you to turn the body camera off or to mute it to stop, those conversations from being recorded because they're not really necessary to what is happening. However, by giving those police officers the option to mute or turn off the body camera, you're also giving them the option to do that when that footage should be recorded. And there's plenty of videos on YouTube where you can find where police officers are literally in the middle of talking to other officers or doing stuff, and then their body cameras fall off, they turn off, they get muted. It's, so that's, I agree with him. I'm about halfway on that one. Should marital rape we're going deep here apparently. Should marital rape be classified and punished as severely as non-marital rape? Yes, and consensual rape with a spouse under the age of 18 should be classified as statutory rape. Okay, I don't really have any issues with that. I don't see why that would have to be, differentiated. I mean, I guess, I can understand, but not at the same time, because rape is rape. But, I guess it can be a little bit more nuanced than that, but we're just talking about it from, way up here. We're zooming out here. Will you get the COVID vaccine once it is ready? Yeah, I don't think he's going to do that. Should the President of the United States have the power to deploy military troops in order to stop protests? No. Interesting. But unfortunately, that is the case because if you go back, there are many presidents going back to the 1800s, back in those days where they were threatening to send in federal troops to quell all those riots. And if you've seen Gangs of New York, you know exactly what I'm talking about at the end of the movie. Should the government regulate? This is going to keep going here. All right, so I thought this was going to be quick. Let's just keep going here a little bit. The government regulate the prices of life-saving drugs? Yes, of course they should, because big businesses are going to just take advantage if they don't. Continue to fund Planned Parenthood? No, they should not, but, he obviously is a Democrat. He feels that way. Should the government institute mandatory buyback of assault weapons? No, increase the mental health and background checks instead. So this is a perfect thing to end on, because this is why I like him. This is a moderate Democrat. This is guys like this, because in today's day and age, having an opinion on a matter like that people would call him a Republican. And there are some people that would say that his family back in the 60s would be, they were Democrats back then, but they'd be Republicans now. This kind of lends credence to that argument, but I would say it's not even about, Republican, Democrat. It's not about, fringe this, fringe that. The Republican and Democrat parties, they exist on a wide spectrum, there used to, when I was a young kid, you used to have liberal Republicans, blue dog Democrats. The difference between a liberal Republican and a blue dog Democrat might be one is pro-life, one is pro-choice, but everything else they're both so moderated on. They have these moderated positions that they're mostly in line with the rest of the country. So the power used to be be focused in the center of this wide political spectrum. In the last 15 years or so, I would say since the rise of Obama and the rise of these big banks and the too big to fail, with Hillary Clinton running in 2016, I believe there's a clip of her saying, we can ask questions about the big banks or we can try to end racism or something like that. And that seems to be where this whole thing started to pick up steam. So this political spectrum that has basically been decimated from the center out since, Hillary Clinton made this speech, essentially. And then, from the big banks trying to fight all, the woke brigades and what were those guys called? The Occupy Wall Street. Tim Pool talks about this a lot. Shout out to Tim. That, this is why we are the way we are. Also, those blue dog Democrats, those liberal Republicans, they all just got weaned out of power. And now we're ending up with these people that, you have the rise of Trump, the rise of Joe Biden and, the moderate Democrat, meaning, these left-wing motherfuckers that are, grooming kids and doing stuff like that. I'm trying to stay within the parameters of the episode here, but I'm kind of, we're working our way back. Guys like RFK Jr. that had these positions, there used to be a lot of them, and that's why the country it was just, when I was a kid, it was pretty moderate. I think the first time you kind of just saw the chinks in the armor, so to speak, was during the debacle of Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, because that was when, the Republicans wanted to impeach him. Right or wrong, that's for debate. Did he lie? That's kind of not what we're talking about. What we're kind of focusing on here is the fact that you had people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Dick Durbin. These people refused to allow the Republicans to impeach him. Now, I believe it passed the articles of impeachment passed the House, but they didn't convict him in the Senate. But the point remains is if you go back to the late 90s, you will see many old press clips of Nancy and Chuck talking about how this impeachment wasn't warranted, so to speak. And then you fast forward, almost 20 years later, and they're in the midst of impeaching Trump over nothing twice, mind you, and it just leaves you scratching your head because now I'm not trying to say these people should have the hindsight to know, in 20 years we might have to impeach a president, so we shouldn't do this now. But if they were being honest about it, they were being honest about what was going on with Bill Clinton, they would have had a lot more moral high ground to stand on when it came to impeachment with Trump. And ever since 2018 when that was happening, that has just made me so upset because what's so crazy to me, these people are so detached from society. They are just living in these bubbles and making millions of dollars by cheating Wall Street and taxpayers that they literally think they can just and be protected by the media all at the same time, that they can literally lie to you when video exists of them contradicting themselves 20 years prior. Again, Republicans aren't any better. I'm just focused on the Democrats right now. So anyway, this is why I like RFK Jr. He's a moderate. He's got a lot of intersecting policies that I like. And, if the Democrats, got their shit together and stopped listening to all these rich fucking people, they could actually have a guy like me vote for them. It's just so crazy to me just how that the Democrats just can't get it together, because if they could get it together, they could literally take people, what they used to call them Reagan Democrats. These are people that voted for Ronald Reagan, that voted for Ronald Reagan, that ended up voting for Barack Obama, for Bill Clinton. There is a part of the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. Again, these are the moderates, the centrists, if you will. Everyone likes to talk about independence. Yeah, independence exists, but there are also people on the political spectrum, who don't. And I am one of these people. Like, you can be a Democrat, you can have Democrat policies, but if they're the right policies, I'll still vote for you. And the same with Republicans. It's just when you get to this, we need to ban abortion for 6 weeks. Okay, like I get what you're doing here, but like this, this isn't like this. That's a Florida thing, okay? That's the Southeast, but Florida isn't Florida. Like, this isn't the South. This isn't the Dixie Democrat South. Like, the conservative side of the state is north of here. The rest of the state is pretty centrist. You know what I mean? So I don't understand why DeSantis, meatball over there, feels the need to pass a 6-week abortion ban, knowing he's going to be running for president. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm all over the place like usual. All right, so let's move over to the Republican side, because there's a lot going on here. So we got a lot of people running for president. Okay, here we go. This is what I want. So this is basically what we've been getting full view. Yeah. So we got Trump. Here, basically running away with this thing. I guarantee you this bump right here was probably when he got indicted. Excuse me. And I think this is the next indictment here, and he's kind of come down since, but still, look at that. He's leading DeSantis by 30 points. He's killing DeSantis, and DeSantis is just, he's kind of recovering here, but like he's going back down again. And then the rest of the pack is right down here in the middle. And yeah, this looks like Trump is just going to run away with this thing. He's up by 32 points. DeSantis is 20, 32 behind him. And then the next person after that is Mike Pence at 5.3. So that's very interesting. So this Trump's going to run away with this thing. That's definitely, that's not up for debate. This is definitely going to go Trump's ways. There's people out there that really want Ron DeSantis to win, and Ron DeSantis is obviously the choice of the never Trump camp, and probably people that don't like Trump for various reasons, not because of his. A lot of people like him for his policies. Some people don't like him for a lot of the other stuff that he does. So that camp kind of falls into the never Trump camp. But again, they like his policies, and I'm sure they're also aware that these never Trumpers, they're also responsible for putting up John McCain, milquetoast Mitt Romney. You know what I mean? Like, this is why I don't think the never Trumpers, they're just going to slowly fade away. And honestly, after Trump, I have no idea what this party is going to turn into. After Trump, they'll probably be able to take back powers from that faction or from that national, the nationalist side of the Republican Party, because the other big faction in there is basically just people that are aligned with Democrats would be the fastest way to say it. All right, so you can see for Iowa, the presidential caucus here, that it's Trump all the way. It's 46-24. 4-7. Haley's at 4.7, Pence at 3 point, and that's the RCP average of all the polls. Just for those listening that aren't watching what's going on here. So yeah, I mean, even with the RCP average of the latest polls, Trump's in Iowa in the presidential caucus is up almost 22.3 points on DeSantis, 21.3, excuse me. So DeSantis, I don't know how he's going to pull out Iowa, and maybe he's going to, maybe they're going to make something work. Maybe they have a good ground game, and, these polls are off. Because, I mean, again, when are the polls ever right, And he's really going to have to either come in really close. He's going to have to make a convincing argument in how he places in Iowa. Because if he goes into Iowa and gets basically smoked and then goes into New Hampshire, where he is currently polling at roughly the same thing. The spread's almost exactly the same. So according to the polls here, DeSantis is going to get, beat up pretty good in Iowa and then beat up pretty good in New Hampshire. And then what's he going to do? I mean, I really hope that his campaign's plan isn't to go into the primary and just hang on till Florida, which I think is Super Tuesday. I could be wrong about that. I remember Florida voting in Super Tuesday last time around. This is also almost 3-4 years ago, so I'm not really remembering so well. But either way, I could see DeSantis hanging on till Florida votes to make the argument, which I don't think is going to be a good argument even if he does hold on to it, because Trump's just going to, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, he's just going to, all of the big red states are going to vote for Trump. But is DeSantis really going to use I lost all these other states, but I won Florida, so therefore I should have it just doesn't make any sense. And at that point, I think he's just hanging on to, because, I mean, again, the never Trumpers, they voted for Biden. So is it really out of the realm of possibility for them to use DeSantis to hobble Biden to hobble Trump? Because the last thing they want is, and I know that sounds like counterproductive, but I really think the never Trumpers, they hate Trump to the point where they would rather see Biden in the White House than him get a second term. And the fact that Biden won 2020, I think, lends credence to what I'm saying there. So I don't really know how DeSantis really plans to get out of this one. Maybe what he's up to is more of a macro stance where, that is what the Reagan plan. And, what is that to, what he kind of did where he ran against Carter beat him. Who was that guy? It was in Gerald Ford. And he ran against Gerald Ford in the primary, which set him up to to win the Republican nomination in 1980. So maybe that's what DeSantis is trying to do. Maybe he's playing a long game here. And again, I kind of get that, but I don't, because at the same time, you're going to need the Trump base in 4 years if you plan on running again. And we all know how cynical and ridiculous these politicians are. He might actually believe, I can run against Trump. I can, go against the grain with his supporters. Maybe I'll lose. Maybe I'll win. I'm willing to take that bet. But if he wins or loses, the stage is set for me in 2028. And maybe that's what's going on. Maybe that's the plan. They have the long term, their 5-year plan for this. I personally think they probably should have just sat back and let Trump win or lose and then run. And then you don't run up against the MAGA faithful, because they're going to lose some of the MAGA base running against Trump, because they're just people that are like that for some reason. I'm open-minded. I'm willing to, be open to DeSantis, but I'm not going to write him off, but I'm also going to say I'm not going to forget this either, bitch. So, all right, what else do we have here? So, Iowa, New Hampshire, we did RFK. Well, let me go back to RFK really quickly. Not much, but did anyone see that interview he did on Breaking Points and the recent one he did on Joe Rogan? And did you see what Rogan said right off the bat when the podcast started? No? Oh, don't worry. We're going to cover that, because I got plenty of more shit to say about Breaking Points. Man, those fucking people. It's like they exist just to validate everything I've been saying. All right. So, yeah, the group just keeps getting bigger for the Republicans. I think the Miami mayor just started running for president. I don't know what the fuck that guy's thinking. How delusional is he? You're going to run against the former president who resides in Florida, the current governor of Florida, and you, the mayor of the most corrupt city in Florida, Miami, is going to run for president? Okay, sure. Go for it, man. Why not? These fucking guys are so freaking delusional. So Asa Hutchinson, governor for Arkansas, I think he did the same thing. Wow, we're at 33 minutes? Holy fucking hell. Okay, I did not realize that. We are 3 minutes past. I got to pay overtime to people. I know Ken's back there celebrating. He works remotely. Fucking son of a bitch. All right, let's wrap this bitch up really quickly here. So here's what I think's going to happen. Again, I'd really like to see RFK take on Biden, but the DNC is going out of their way to make sure Biden doesn't have to be out in public, do any debates. They're going to hide him and basically thumb the scale like they have for the last 2 elections, going back to Clinton in 2016, that is. Probably in 2012 with Barack, but I don't think he had really any opposition running against him. So I just based on that, RFK is probably just going to, be RFK. Maybe he'll hurt Biden away. There's some people saying that RFK, in the position that he currently is right now, could force Biden to, kind of go the way LBJ did, because I think LBJ was running in 68, and I don't know the name of the guy that was running against him within the nomination. I forgot it, but he was polling roughly around what RFK was, and it was enough for LBJ as president to say, you know what, I'm not running for president. And that was how we ended up getting Nixon, because I forgot who ran. I think Hubert Humphrey ran in 68 against Nixon, and that didn't work out too well. So there's some people in Washington that think that could happen. So, who would run in his place? Maybe RFK would get it. Maybe it would be Gavin Newsom, because the establishment's going to put their guy in there. They're not going to just let RFK take the nomination. So there's a possibility there. But at the moment, I'm not seeing that. But hey, anything can happen. Yeah. That guy is how old? 80-something. So, you never know. On the Republican side, I think we're most likely going to get Trump. I'd be very surprised if to go any other way. He's just dominating. His polling numbers are dominating, and just what the establishment in Washington is trying to do to him with the indictments, what the media industrial complex is, or the cathedral, as I like to call it. Shout out to Dave Smith. I think that's kind of what's putting a lot of this momentum behind Trump. And again, this just goes kind of to what I've been saying through this episode is the Democrat establishment, they just can't stop. I don't understand what they're doing there. Everything they do, yes, we'll impeach Trump and the country will hate him. We'll fictitiously release these scandals through the media, and everyone will hate him. We'll indict him through the FBI, and everyone will hate him. But none of this is working. It's and they won't give up. It's just nuts. And what's crazy is it's having the opposite effect of what they want. They're trying to do all this, indict him, put the stories out, whatever it may be, to get everyone turned off by him. And ironically, that's the last thing that's happening. I mean, we just went through his numbers. You see what I'm saying? The data, it says it all right there. But the establishment, they're just going to do the only thing that they know. And I think the reason we're seeing that is because these establishment people, specifically, on the Democrat and the never Trumper side, they are just so disconnected from everyone. They're just so disconnected from everyday life. They don't know what it's like to work paycheck to paycheck. They don't know what it's like not to be able to buy a house. They don't know what it's like to have to pay $2,000 in rent. They don't know what it's like to be infected by inflation. They don't know what it's like not to have a 401k. They don't know what it's like not to be invested into Wall Street. I think you see what I'm saying here. All right, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in to Ready Said Podcast. I'm Joe Persinger. And if society's a joke, then we're just here for the first set. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.